Girl sees elderly woman attacked by snake, while vultures watch, then she does this. Comment what you thought of this story, giving it a score from 0 to 10, and tell me what city you're watching from. I really want to know if you liked my story and get to know you better, so please subscribe to my channel to support my work. I'm counting on your help. The sun was beginning to set over the mountains surrounding Havenwood when Lily, just 4 years old, walked barefoot along the dirt road connecting the town to the next county. Her small, calloused feet knew this path well. It was where she usually wandered in search of fallen fruit from the trees or any leftover food that drivers tossed out their windows. Her brown hair was tangled and dirty, and the faded pink dress she had been wearing for weeks hung loosely on her thin little body. The girl had learned to survive alone on the streets since her mother mysteriously disappeared a few months ago. Claire had left one morning promising to be back soon, but she never returned, leaving Lily to fend for herself in a world that seemed to have forgotten children like her existed. The girl slept under awnings, ate what she could find, and had developed a sharp instinct for sensing danger. That afternoon, something different caught her attention. Further down the road, near a bend surrounded by pine trees, she heard a faint, desperate groan. Lily stopped, her large brown eyes scanning the surroundings with the caution of someone who had learned the world could be cruel. The sound repeated. It was clearly a human voice calling for help. Approaching slowly, Lily saw a scene that made her freeze in fear. A white-haired lady was on the ground, trying to get away from a coral snake that was slowly approaching, its triangular head swaying from side to side in hypnotic movements. The woman was clearly injured. One of her legs was bleeding, probably hurt in the fall that had left her vulnerable to the imminent attack. Hope Miller, at 72 years old, had left home after another violent argument with her son Michael. The 45-year-old man insisted that she sell the small homemade candy factory the family had owned for 3 generations, claiming they urgently needed the money. Hope knew all too well about her son's online gambling addiction and refused to feed that destructive obsession, which had already consumed a large part of the family's savings. Furious and hurt by the harsh words Michael had shouted, Hope had decided to walk to the rural chapel where she used to pray when she needed peace. During her walk, she had tripped on a loose stone and fallen awkwardly, twisting her ankle and deeply scratching her leg. The injury wasn't serious, but the pain prevented her from getting up quickly. It was in this moment of vulnerability that the snake emerged from the nearby bushes, perhaps attracted by the smell of blood or simply defending its territory. Hope tried to drag herself away, but every movement sent waves of pain through her tired body. She thought of Michael, of how he would feel if something happened to her, and a tear ran down her wrinkled face. Lily watched the scene for a few seconds that felt like an eternity. Above, vultures were already beginning to circle, as if sensing an imminent tragedy. The girl had seen snakes before during her wanderings and knew they were dangerous. But something inside her, a courage she didn't even know she possessed, made her act. Without a second thought, Lily picked up a rock the size of her fist that was near her feet. With all the strength her small body could muster, she threw the rock towards the snake, hitting it right in the middle of its body. The animal writhed, clearly stunned and irritated, but before it could react, Lily screamed loudly and clapped her hands, making enough noise to confuse and scare the serpent. The snake, realizing it no longer had the upper hand, decided to retreat into the dense vegetation, disappearing among the dry leaves with a sinuous movement. Lily remained motionless. For a few moments, her heart beating so hard she could hear it echoing in her ears. Hope looked at the dirty, ragged little girl who had just saved her life and felt an inexplicable emotion fill her chest. There was something familiar in those large, expressive eyes, something that awakened a painful memory stored for years in her heart. "Thank you, my dear," Hope said with a choked voice, extending a trembling hand towards the child. "You were very brave." Lily approached hesitantly, still alert for any sign that the snake might return. When she got close to the old woman, she was struck by the kindness in her blue eyes, so different from the harsh, indifferent looks she was used to receiving. "You're hurt," Lily observed in her thin, worried voice, pointing to the wound on Hope's leg. "I am, but it's nothing a bandage won't fix," the elderly woman replied, trying to lean on her elbow to get into a more comfortable position. "What's your name, Angel?" "Lily," the girl answered simply, without mentioning that she had no known last name or family to turn to. Hope felt a pang in her chest upon hearing the name. Her daughter Claire had always said that if she ever had a girl, she would name her Lily. Could it just be a coincidence? The old woman studied the child's face more closely, noticing features that seemed strangely familiar. The shape of her eyes, the way she furrowed her brow when she was thoughtful. "Lily is a very beautiful name," Hope said, fighting against an emotion she couldn't fully comprehend. "Do you live around here?" The question touched a raw nerve in the little girl's heart. Lily looked down and nervously fidgeted with the hem of her dirty dress. "I don't have a home," she mumbled. "My mom went away and didn't come back." The child's words struck Hope like a lightning bolt. The girl's description, her apparent age, the fact that she was alone, it all began to form a picture that made her tremble with emotion and expectation. "What was your mother like, dear?" Hope asked, trying to keep her voice steady, though her heart was racing. "She had long brown hair, just like mine, and she used to sing softly when she was sad," Lily replied, a single tear rolling down her dirty cheek. Hope closed her eyes, feeling the world spin around her. The description perfectly matched her daughter Claire, who had been kicked out of the house 5 years earlier after getting pregnant by a married man and refusing to reveal his identity. Hope managed to lean on Lily, and together they walked slowly to the small yellow house that was just a few yards from the candy factory. The girl, despite being frail, showed impressive determination in helping the injured woman, even carrying the crochet bag that Hope had dropped during her fall. "You're very strong for such a little girl," Hope commented as she limped, observing how Lily supported her with genuine care. "I had to learn to be strong," Lily answered simply, but with a maturity that broke the old woman's heart. When they arrived home, Hope noticed how Lily's eyes widened at the sight of the organized living room, with clean furniture and the smell of cinnamon and vanilla that always perfumed the air due to its proximity to the factory. The girl gently touched the floral sofa, as if she couldn't believe something could be so soft and clean. "You can sit, my dear," Hope said, pointing to the sofa. "I'll get you something to eat, and then we'll take care of my leg." Lily hesitated for a moment, looking at her dirty clothes and then at the impeccable sofa. Hope noticed the hesitation and felt a pang of tenderness mixed with indignation as she imagined what this child had been through to develop such a concern for cleanliness. "Don't worry about dirt, dear. A sofa is for sitting, regardless of how we're dressed," Hope said with affectionate firmness. In the kitchen, Hope prepared a plate of biscuits with homemade apple butter and a glass of warm milk. When she returned to the living room, she found Lily examining a framed photo on the coffee table. It was a picture of Claire at 16, smiling during a local county fair. "She's pretty," Lily murmured, tracing the glass of the frame with her small, dirty finger. Hope almost dropped the plate she was carrying. Do you think she looks like someone you know?" Lily studied the photo for a few more seconds before answering. "She looks like my mom, but younger. My mom had little wrinkles here," she said, touching her own eyes, "and she was sad sometimes." Hope's legs gave way, and she had to lean against the wall. There was no doubt anymore. This child was her granddaughter. Claire must have gotten pregnant after being kicked out of the house, and for some terrible reason had disappeared from her daughter's life. "Eat, my dear," Hope said, placing the plate on the table and trying to control the emotion that threatened to overflow. We'll talk more later. Lily devoured the food as if she hadn't eaten in days, which was probably true. Between bites, she looked around the house with curiosity, absorbing every detail of the welcoming environment that contrasted so starkly with the harsh reality of the streets. The sound of the door being thrown open interrupted the moment. Michael stormed into the house like a hurricane, visibly irritated and holding his phone. "Mom, where were you? I was worried when I saw you weren't home," he said. But his voice carried no genuine concern, only thinly veiled irritation. Michael Miller had inherited his late father's height and strong build, but his constantly tense expression and bloodshot eyes betrayed sleepless nights in front of the computer, betting on online games that promised quick fortune and delivered only growing debts. "I fell on the road, and this girl saved me from a snake," Hope explained, noticing how Michael looked at Lily with a mixture of surprise and displeasure. "A snake?" Michael asked, but his eyes were fixed on the dirty child sitting on his sofa. "And who is she?" "This is Lily. She'll be staying with us for a while," Hope declared with a determination that surprised even herself. Michael opened his mouth to protest, but something in his mother's expression made him hesitate. In his 45 years of life, he had learned to recognize when Hope made an irrevocable decision, and that tone of voice indicated exactly that. "Mom, you can't just bring a street kid home. What if she has some disease? What if her parents show up looking for her?" Michael argued, trying to sound rational while internally calculating how this unexpected situation could affect his plans to sell the property. "She doesn't have parents, at least not any who can take care of her," Hope replied, protectively stroking Lily's tangled hair. "And as for diseases, I'll take her to the doctor tomorrow." Lily watched the argument in silence, used to being treated like an unwanted object that people tried to pass on, but there was something different in the way the white-haired lady talked about her, a genuine protection that made her instinctively move closer to Hope. "Mom, be reasonable. We can't just adopt a child like this," Michael insisted, but his voice sounded false even to himself. "I'm not adopting anyone. I'm helping a child in need, and if that bothers you, you can find another place to live," Hope retorted with a firmness that left Michael pale. The man knew he couldn't afford to leave home at that moment. His debts had grown so large he could barely pay the interest, and any sudden move could draw the creditor's attention to the family's assets. He needed to keep up appearances until he could convince his mother to sell the factory. "All right, Mom, but it's temporary, right?" Michael said, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "We'll see," Hope replied enigmatically. That night, after giving Lily a bath and dressing her in a clean nightgown that she had saved from when Claire was little, Hope stayed up late, watching the girl sleep peacefully in the twin bed in the guest room. The resemblance to Claire was undeniable, not just physically, but also in the small gestures, the way she wrinkled her nose when she was thoughtful, the way she slept curled up like a kitten seeking protection. Hope retrieved a box stored in the back of the closet, where she kept all of her daughter's mementos, childhood photographs, school drawings, teenage love letters Claire had written but never sent. In the midst of these treasures, she found a letter that Claire herself had left before leaving home 5 years ago. "Mom, I know you're disappointed in me, but I hope one day you can forgive me. I'll take good care of the baby I'm carrying, and maybe when he's born, we can talk again. I love you, Claire." Tears streamed down Hope's face as she remembered how harsh she had been that day, letting pride and social shame speak louder than a mother's love. Claire had tried to explain the situation, but Hope had refused to listen, demanding that her daughter reveal the married man's name or leave the house. Now, looking at Lily sleeping peacefully for the first time in months, Hope understood that she had made a terrible mistake. Her daughter hadn't abandoned the child. Out of irresponsibility, something serious had happened to Claire, something that prevented her from caring for her daughter. In the next room, Michael couldn't sleep. The arrival of this girl was a complication he hadn't foreseen. If she was truly his mother's granddaughter, it would mean one more person with a right to the inheritance, another obstacle between him and the money he desperately needed. Michael picked up his phone and opened the betting app he had promised himself he wouldn't use anymore. But the anxiety of the new situation, combined with the pressure of his debts, was too strong to resist. In a few minutes, he had lost another $500 he didn't have. The phone screen glowed in the dark when a message arrived from an unknown number. "Michael, we know about your debts. Time to talk about permanent solutions. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. at Joe's bar." Michael felt his blood run cold. He had reached the point where creditors started showing up in person, and that was never a good sign. The next morning, Hope woke up to the soft sound of Lily playing in the yard. Through the window, she saw the girl talking to a cardinal that had landed on the branch of the old oak tree, as if the two were old friends. The simple, innocent scene sparked a joy Hope hadn't felt in years. "Good morning, my dear," she said, stepping out the back door with a cup of coffee in her hands. "Good morning, Grandma," Lily replied naturally, then blushed when she realized what she had said. "Sorry, I didn't mean to—" "No need to be sorry," Hope interrupted, her eyes welling with emotion. "You can call me that if you want." The word grandma resonated in Hope's heart like a long-forgotten song. It was all she had ever dreamed of being, but life's circumstances had stolen that opportunity. Now, by a miracle of fate, a second chance was appearing before her. Michael watched the scene from the kitchen window, drinking black coffee and smoking his third cigarette of the morning. His nerves were on edge because of the meeting scheduled for that afternoon. He knew the reputation of Joe's bar. It wasn't exactly a place where legal business was discussed. "Mom, I need to take care of some things in town today," he announced, trying to sound casual. "I'll be back late this afternoon." Hope didn't even look at him, too focused on watching Lily discover the vibrant colors of the garden flowers. "All right, son. Go ahead. I'm taking Lily for some medical tests." The mention of medical tests made Michael frown. If they really proved that Lily was his mother's granddaughter through some test, it would complicate his plans even more. But he couldn't protest without seeming suspicious. At 2 o'clock sharp, Michael parked his beat-up Chevy Cavalier in front of Joe's bar, a gloomy establishment in downtown Havenwood where men of dubious business gathered to discuss matters they preferred to keep away from prying ears. Inside the bar, 3 men were waiting for him at a back table. The leader, a short, muscular fellow named Roger, had a known reputation in town for resolving collection problems in unorthodox ways. "Michael, glad you could make it," Roger said with a smile that conveyed no warmth. "We need to talk about your financial situation." "I know I'm in debt, but I'll be able to pay soon," Michael began, but was cut off by an impatient gesture from Roger. "Michael, you owe $400,000 to various online betting houses. The interest is growing every day, and our patience is running out," said one of the other men, consulting a spreadsheet on his phone. "$400,000? Michael murmured, feeling the world spin around him. He knew he owed a lot, but he had never calculated the exact total. "That's right, and we know your mother has a valuable property," Roger continued. "A candy factory with a large plot of land. Must be worth about $2 million on the market." Michael felt sweat run down his back. "How do you know that?" "Michael, it's our job to know. And we have a proposal for you," Roger said, leaning forward. "You transfer the property to us, we clear your debts, and we'll even give you $100,000 to start a new life." "I can't do that. The property isn't mine. It's my mother's," Michael protested, even though he knew he was partially lying. "Then convince your mother to sell," Or find another way to solve it, Roger said, getting up from the table. You have 1 week, Michael. After that, we'll have to adopt less gentle methods of collection. Michael left the bar with shaky legs and a racing heart. 1 week. He had only 1 week to convince his mother to sell the property or find $400,000 some other way. Meanwhile, at the town's medical clinic, Hope held Lily's hand during the exams. Dr. Harris, a kind 50-year-old man who had known the family for decades, examined the girl carefully. She's malnourished, but nothing that good nutrition won't fix in a few weeks, he told Hope. She has some old marks that suggest she's been through hardship, but physically she's fine. Doctor, I'd like to get a DNA test, Hope said quietly, so Lily wouldn't hear. The doctor raised his eyebrows, but showed no surprise. In a small town like Havenwood, stories of separated families were not uncommon. I can arrange that. It will take a few days to get the results, he replied. When they returned home, Hope found Michael nervously pacing in the kitchen, obsessively checking his phone. There was something different about his posture, a tension she recognized from the times he used to lie about his school grades. How was town? She asked casually, helping Lily get settled in the living room with a storybook. Fine, fine. Took care of some pending issues, Michael muttered, unable to look his mother in the eye. That night, after Lily had fallen asleep, Hope decided to check on a few things that had been bothering her. Michael had mentioned proposals to buy the factory several times in recent weeks, but she had never seen any official documents. She went to the office attached to the house and began to review the company's papers. To her surprise and horror, she discovered several bank transactions she didn't recognize. Large withdrawals made with her signature, transfers to accounts she didn't know, loans taken out in the company's name. With trembling hands, Hope picked up a magnifying glass and examined the signatures more closely. They weren't hers. Someone had skillfully forged her handwriting, but small details in the formation of the letters revealed them as imitations. Michael, she whispered into the void, feeling a mixture of sadness and anger fill her chest. Hope spent the dawn hours checking document after document, discovering that Michael had withdrawn nearly $300,000 from the company account over the past 2 years. The money she thought was saved for emergencies and factory improvements had simply vanished. More painful than the financial betrayal was the realization that her own son had been lying to her for years. All those nights he said he was working late, all the excuses about business meetings. It had all been a sham to cover up his gambling addiction. As the sun began to rise, Hope was sitting at the office desk, surrounded by piles of documents that proved Michael's betrayal. Her first reaction was despair. How could she confront her son about this? How could she rebuild the broken trust? But then she heard small footsteps in the hallway and saw Lily appear at the office door, her hair messy from sleep and holding a small teddy bear that Hope had given her. "Grandma, you didn't sleep?" the girl asked in a worried voice. At that moment, looking into the innocent eyes of the granddaughter she had miraculously found, Hope felt a renewed strength grow inside her. Michael had betrayed her trust, but she still had a family to protect. She still had a second chance to make things right. "I slept, dear. I just woke up early to do a little work," Hope lied, quickly gathering the documents. "How about we have breakfast together?" Lily smiled and nodded, but noticed the dried tears on Hope's face. With the sensitivity of a child who had seen too much adult suffering, she approached and gave her grandmother a tight hug. "Don't be sad, Grandma. I'll take care of you," Lily murmured, and Hope felt her heart break and mend at the same time. That morning, as they prepared breakfast together, Hope made a silent but determined decision. She would not allow Michael to destroy what was left of the family. And most importantly, she would not let him harm Lily's future. But first, she needed to find out how far her son's betrayal went and how to legally protect the assets she now knew were threatened. Hope waited until lunchtime to confront Michael. She had spent the entire morning playing with Lily in the garden, trying to maintain a sense of normalcy while inwardly seething with indignation and sadness. The girl had shown an impressive knack for gardening, watering each flower with motherly care and talking to them as if they were people. "She has a green thumb," Hope commented, watching as Lily arranged small colored pebbles around the begonias. "My mom liked flowers too," Lily replied naturally. "She used to say that plants are happy when you talk to them." The casual mention of Claire made Hope's heart ache. Every word from Lily was another confirmation that she was indeed her granddaughter, the daughter of the girl who had been so harshly kicked out of the house. When Michael arrived for lunch, Hope watched him carefully. He seemed even more nervous than in the morning, constantly checking his phone and eating without paying attention to his food. There were deep, dark circles under his eyes, and his hands trembled slightly when he picked up his fork. "Lily, dear, how about you go play in your room for a bit while Michael and I talk?" Hope suggested after they finished eating. The girl obeyed without question, but Michael immediately became alert. He knew that tone from his mother, the same one she used when she discovered his childhood mischief. As soon as they were alone, Hope placed a stack of bank documents on the table. Michael turned pale, recognizing the papers he thought were securely hidden. "Can you explain these bank transactions to me?" Hope asked, her voice calm but filled with an authority that made Michael shrink in his chair. "Mom, I can explain," he began, but the words died in his throat when he saw his mother's piercing gaze. $300,000, Michael. $300,000 from the company account, withdrawn with forgeries of my signature," Hope continued, keeping her tone controlled despite the storm she felt inside. Michael tried to deny it, but faced with irrefutable evidence, his defenses crumbled like a house of cards. "Mom, I was desperate. The debts grew so fast, and I thought I could replace the money before you found out." "Online gambling debts," Hope said, not as a question, but as a statement. "How do you know?" "Michael, I've been your mother for 45 years. Do you think I don't recognize the signs of an addiction?" she replied, feeling a mixture of anger and pity for her son. "How long has this been going on?" "About 3 years," Michael mumbled, unable to look his mother in the eye. "It started small, just a few games to relax after work. But then you lost control," Hope completed. "And now you owe how much?" Michael hesitated before answering. $400,000. The number hit Hope like a punch to the gut. It was more money than the factory earned in 2 years. $400,000, she repeated slowly, processing the magnitude of the betrayal. "Mom, I have a solution. We can sell the factory. There are business people interested. I can get a good price," Michael said desperately. "Oh, really? And who are these business people?" Hope asked suspiciously. Michael stammered, realizing he had walked into a trap. They're investors from out of town. They want to expand into the rural areas." "Lies," Hope said flatly. "You're lying to me again, Michael. Just like you lied about the forged signatures. Just like you lied about where you were going when you left the house. Just like you probably lied about many other things." The accusation cut deep into Michael's heart, mainly because it was true. He had become an expert liar, building layers of falsehoods to hide his self-destructive addiction. "Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't want it to get to this point," he said, and for the first time in years, his tears were genuine. Hope watched her son cry and felt her mother's heart torn between love and disappointment. Part of her wanted to comfort him as she did when he was little, but another part knew she had to be firm to protect what was left of the family. "Michael, you need professional help. This addiction is destroying not only your life, but our family," she said firmly. "And in the meantime, I'm going to take steps to protect the remaining assets." "What does that mean?" Michael asked, a chill running down his spine. It means I'm changing the bank authorizations. You will no longer have access to the company accounts, Hope replied, watching as her son's face contorted in despair. Michael felt his world collapse around him. Without access to the company accounts, he couldn't sustain his addiction, but he also couldn't pay off the debts he had already incurred. The men from Joe's bar were not known for their patience with defaulters. "Mom, you can't do this to me. I'm your only son," he pleaded. "That's exactly why I'm doing it," Hope answered. "Because you are my son, and I won't let you completely destroy yourself." After the conversation, Michael locked himself in his room, desperate and furious. He picked up his phone and called Roger, the man he had met at the bar. "Roger, it's Michael. I need more time," he said as soon as the call was answered. "Michael, we already talked about this yesterday. 1 week, remember?" Roger replied with an impatient voice. "My mother found out about the money. She cut off my access to the accounts," Michael explained, desperation evident in his voice. "That's your problem, kid. Our only concern is getting what we're owed," Roger said coldly. "What if I can get her to sell the property voluntarily?" Michael suggested. "How?" "She took in a street girl. If something were to happen to the child, my mother would be so devastated she might sign the papers without question," Michael said, hating himself for uttering those words. On the other end of the line, there was a long silence. "Michael, what exactly are you suggesting?" "Nothing violent," Michael hurried to say, "but maybe the girl could just disappear, be taken far away from here. My mother would be desperate, and I could convince her she needs to sell the property to pay for the costs of searching for the child." "Interesting," Roger murmured. "I'll think about your proposal. But remember, 1 week, with or without your creativity." After he hung up, Michael sat on the edge of the bed, horrified by what he had suggested. He was so desperate that he was considering harming an innocent child to save his own skin. The addiction had eroded not only his finances, but also his moral compass. Downstairs, Hope had spent the rest of the afternoon on the phone with the family lawyer, Mr. Arthur Shaw, a 60-year-old man who had known the Millers for decades. "Hope, the situation is serious," the lawyer said. "The signature forgeries constitute a crime, and Michael's debts could affect the family assets if we don't take immediate action." "What do you recommend?" Hope asked. "First, we'll change all authorizations and bank access. Second, we need to do a complete inventory of the assets and protect them legally. And third, it would be wise to consider admitting Michael to a rehabilitation clinic." Hope sighed deeply. "Arthur, there's something else. I believe the girl I brought home is my granddaughter, Claire's daughter." "The Claire who left home 5 years ago?" the lawyer asked, surprised. "Exactly. I've ordered a DNA test, but all signs point to it being her, and if it's confirmed, I want to change my will. To include the girl. To include the girl and protect her from any attempt by Michael to harm her," Hope said, not knowing how prophetic her words were. That night, Lily woke up thirsty and went down to the kitchen. On the way, she heard Michael talking on the phone in a low voice in his room. Curious, the girl approached the door and managed to overhear fragments of the conversation. "1 week. The girl needs to disappear. My mother will be desperate." Lily didn't fully understand what she had heard, but her survival instinct, sharpened by months on the streets, set off an internal alarm. There was something dangerous in that man's voice, something that reminded her of the human predators she had learned to avoid during her life on the streets. The next morning, Lily woke up earlier than usual, restless from what she had heard the night before. While Hope was still asleep, the girl decided to explore the house, driven by a childish curiosity mixed with the survival instinct that life on the streets had taught her. She climbed the softly creaking wooden stairs to the attic, a space she had noticed during her first explorations of the house. The door was ajar, and rays of morning sun filtered through a small circular window, creating a magical atmosphere full of dancing shadows. The attic was filled with dusty boxes, furniture covered in white sheets, and objects that told decades of the Miller family's history. Lily walked carefully among the relics, gently touching an old doll, a wedding dress yellowed by time, photographs in ornate frames. It was while she was examining a pile of old books that something caught her attention. At the bottom of a box marked with the name Claire, there was a bundle of letters, tied with a faded red ribbon. Lily carefully picked up the letters, and her heart raced when she recognized the delicate handwriting on the top envelope. It was her mother's handwriting. With trembling fingers, Lily opened the first letter, struggling to decipher the words with her still developing reading skills. The letter was dated 3 years ago and began with, "Dear Mom." "I hope this letter finds you well," Lily read slowly, moving her finger over each word. Lily is growing so much. She already knows her colors and likes to draw little birds. I wish so much you could meet her. Tears began to run down the girl's face as she understood that her mother had tried to stay in touch with her grandmother. She opened the second letter, this one from 2 years ago. "Mum, we're living in a small boarding house here in Asheville. Lily asks about her grandma every day. Could we maybe visit for the county fair? I promise we won't cause any trouble." The third letter was from just a year ago, and the tone had changed to something more desperate. "Mom, please answer me. I'm going through a hard time and really need your help. Lily is getting sick from not having proper food. I know I did things that disappointed you, but she is innocent. Please don't abandon your granddaughter." Lily cried silently, realizing that her mother had never abandoned her on purpose. Claire had fought. She had tried to ask for help, but for some reason, her letters never reached Hope. It was then that she found something even more disturbing at the bottom of the box. There were dozens of other letters, all addressed to Hope, all in Claire's handwriting, but these were open, and some had angry notes in the margins in Michael's handwriting. "Liar" was written on a letter where Claire talked about her financial difficulties. "Gold digger" on one where she asked for help to buy medicine for Lily. "Doesn't deserve forgiveness" on a Christmas letter where Claire sent drawings made by Lily to her grandmother. The puzzle began to form in Lily's mind. Michael had been intercepting her mother's letters, preventing Hope from knowing they were trying to come home. But why? Just then, she heard footsteps coming up the stairs. Quickly, Lily hid some of the most important letters inside her clothes and closed the box, pretending to be just curiously exploring the attic. "Lily, what are you doing up here?" Hope asked, appearing at the attic door. "Sorry, Grandma, I was just looking at the old things," Lily replied, trying to seem innocent while feeling the hidden letters press against her chest. "It's all right, dear, but let's go have breakfast," Hope said, noticing that the girl seemed agitated for some reason. During breakfast, Lily could barely eat, her mind swirling with the discoveries from the attic. She watched Michael come into the kitchen with red eyes and trembling hands, clearly in an emotional hangover from the conversation with his mother the day before. "Good morning," he muttered, avoiding looking at both Hope and Lily. "Michael, I need you to go to the notary's office with me today," Hope announced. "We're going to change some authorizations and company documents." Michael's face paled. "Mom, is that really necessary? I promise I can change. I can stop the games." "The changes have already been decided," Hope replied firmly. "It's for the good of the family." After breakfast, when Michael went out to smoke in the yard, Lily took the opportunity to approach Hope. With her heart pounding, she pulled one of the letters from inside her clothes. "Grandma, I found this in the attic," she said, handing over one of Claire's most recent letters. Hope took the letter with curiosity, but when she recognized the handwriting and read the content, she almost fainted. It was a letter from 6 months ago where Claire talked about being sick and needing urgent help to care for Lily. "Where did you find this?" Hope asked in a trembling voice. "In a box upstairs. There were many others just like it," Lily answered innocently. Hope stormed up to the attic with Lily, running behind her. When she opened Claire's box and saw dozens of letters she had never received, she felt a mixture of fury and desolation that almost made her pass out. Each letter told a story of struggle and suffering. Claire had desperately tried to keep in touch, had begged for help, had sent pictures of Lily growing up, drawings made by the girl, even locks of her granddaughter's hair as mementos. And Michael had hidden it all. "That monster," Hope whispered, tears of anger streaming down her face. "That monster kept us from finding each other all these years." The most recent letters were the most painful to read. Claire talked about being sick, about not having money for a doctor, about Lily going hungry. In the last letter, dated just 4 months ago, Claire wrote, "Mom, I don't know if you'll receive this letter, since you never answered the previous ones. I'm very sick, and I don't know how much longer I can take care of Lily. If something happens to me, please, take care of her. I know I made mistakes, but she is innocent and deserves a family. She is all the good I have in this world." Hope hugged Lily tightly, finally understanding what had happened. Claire had tried to come home when she got sick, but Michael had stopped her, and now her daughter had disappeared, leaving Lily an orphan on the streets. "Grandma, why did Uncle Michael hide my mom's letters?" Lily asked, not fully grasping the gravity of the situation. Before Hope could answer, they heard Michael's voice shouting from downstairs. "Mom! Mom! Where are you?" Hope descended the stairs with Lily, carrying the bundle of letters as evidence of a betrayal that went beyond stolen money. When she reached the living room, she found Michael nervous, constantly looking out the window. "There are some men outside," he said in a tense voice. "I think they're collectors. They want to talk to me." Hope looked out the window and saw 3 men in a dark car parked in front of the house. Even without knowing them, there was something threatening about their posture that made her instinctively pull Lily closer. "Michael, what have you done?" she asked, though she already knew the answer would be terrible. "Mom, I tried to buy time, but they don't want to wait anymore," Michael said, desperation evident in his voice. "They want the money today or what? Or they'll take measures to ensure payment," Michael completed, avoiding looking at Lily. It was at that moment that Hope understood the extent of the danger they were in. Michael had not only stolen money and hidden letters, he had put the entire family at risk by getting involved with dangerous loan sharks. And worse still, she began to suspect that Michael's sudden interest in getting rid of Lily was not just jealousy, but part of a desperate plan to save his own skin. The men in the dark car pounded on the door with excessive force, making the window panes tremble. Hope instinctively pushed Lily behind her, her maternal instincts awakening in the face of the evident threat. "Michael Miller, we know you're in there," a gruff voice shouted from outside. "Time to talk like men." Michael was as pale as a sheet, sweating profusely despite the day not being particularly hot. His hands trembled so much he could barely hold the phone he was trying to use to call for help. "Mom, take Lily to the back room and lock the door," he whispered desperately. "These men don't mess around." "Michael, you're going to explain to me exactly what's happening," Hope demanded. But her firm voice couldn't completely hide the fear she felt for her granddaughter's safety. "It's the creditors I mentioned. They want a definitive answer about the payment," Michael explained quickly. "If I don't get the money today—" The sentence was interrupted by another round of banging on the door, this time accompanied by the sound of something heavy being used to force it open. Hope made a quick decision. She picked Lily up and ran to the kitchen phone, quickly dialing the number of the local police station. But before she could complete the call, the front door burst open with a crash. Mrs. Hope, no need to call anyone, Roger said, entering the room with two equally intimidating companions. We've just come to talk about business. The short, muscular man surveyed the house with calculating eyes, noting the antique furniture, the family photographs, the details that indicated a family of modest but stable means. Roger, my mother has nothing to do with this, Michael said, trying to stand between the men and his family. Oh, but she does, Roger replied with a cruel smile. She owns the property that's going to pay us, doesn't she? Hope felt Lily cling tighter to her neck, and it gave her a courage she didn't know she possessed. Gentlemen, I suggest you leave my house immediately. I have no debt with you. It's true you don't owe anything personally, agreed one of Roger's companions, a tall, thin man with visible scars on his face, but your son does. And according to the law of the street, family answers for family. That's not true, and you know it, Hope retorted, but her voice was beginning to falter in the face of the reality that she was dealing with unscrupulous people. Roger approached slowly, his eyes fixed on Lily. What a beautiful little girl, he said, and there was something in the way he spoke that made Hope's blood run cold. It would be a shame if something happened to her because of her uncle's irresponsibility. The implied threat was enough to break Michael's last defenses. Leave them out of this. The problem is with me. Michael, you had your chance to solve this between men, Roger said coldly. Now we're going to do it our way. Your mother has 48 hours to sign the papers to sell the property. After that... He didn't complete the sentence, but the meaning was clear to everyone in the room. And if I refuse? Hope asked, though she already knew the answer. You're an intelligent woman, Roger replied. I'm sure you'll make the right choice to protect your family. The three men left as abruptly as they had arrived, leaving behind only the echo of their threats and a family shattered by fear. Michael collapsed onto the sofa, covering his face with his hands. Mum, forgive me. I didn't want it to get to this point. Michael, you put our family in danger, Hope said, her voice trembling with restrained anger. And now you need to tell me everything, absolutely everything. It was then that Michael revealed the full extent of his desperate plan. He told her about the proposal he had made for Lily to disappear, about how he planned to use his mother's desperation to force her to sell the property. Hope listened in shocked silence, holding Lily in a tight, protective embrace. The girl didn't fully understand what was happening, but she felt the adult's tension and remained quiet, her large eyes observing everything with a precocious wisdom gained from the harshness of the streets. You considered harming an innocent child to save your own skin, Hope said when Michael finished speaking. There was a coldness in her voice he had never heard before. Mom, I was desperate. I wasn't thinking straight, Michael tried to justify. Get out of my house, Hope said simply. What? Get out of my house, now. And don't come back until you've sought professional help for your addiction and found a way to resolve this situation without harming innocent people. Michael tried to argue, but one look from his mother was enough to make him understand that the decision was irrevocable. He grabbed some clothes and left the house without knowing where to go, leaving Hope alone with Lily and a concrete threat hanging over them. That night, after Lily fell asleep, exhausted by the day's events, Hope called Mr. Shaw to tell him about the loan shark's threats. Hope, the situation is extremely serious, the lawyer said. These men don't make empty threats. You need to leave the house immediately. Arthur, I can't run away. This is my home. My life is here, Hope protested. Your life is worth nothing if these men decide to be violent, the lawyer retorted. I have a cabin in the mountains. You can take Lily there while we sort this out. Hope considered the proposal, but before she could answer, the phone rang again. It was an unknown number. Hello? Mrs. Hope Miller? A strange female voice asked. Yes. Who is this? My name is Marcia. I'm a social worker at the Asheville City Hospital. Do you know a young woman named Claire Miller? Hope's heart stopped. Claire is my daughter. Why do you ask? Ma'am, she's been hospitalized here for the past few months. She's very sick, but she's always asking for a daughter named Lily. We got your contact information from documents she was carrying. Hope felt the world spin around her. Claire was alive, but sick, and had been looking for Lily the whole time. How is she? Hope asked, tears streaming down her face. It's complicated, ma'am. She has a severe lung infection, aggravated by malnutrition. She's been asking for her daughter constantly, and the doctors think seeing her could help her recovery. I'm on my way right now, Hope said without hesitation. Ma'am, I need to warn you that she is very weak. And, well, she always says her family kicked her out. She's afraid you won't want to see her. Tell her I'm coming, and that I'm bringing Lily with me, Hope replied, already thinking about how to arrange the trip. After hanging up, Hope spent a few minutes processing all the information. Claire was alive, but sick. Michael had intercepted her letters for years. Loan sharks were threatening the family, and now she had to make decisions that would protect both Lily and her lost daughter. She went up to the room where Lily was sleeping and watched the girl's angelic face illuminated by the moonlight coming through the window. Tomorrow, she would tell the child that her mother was alive, but she would also have to explain that she was very sick. My little warrior, Hope whispered, gently stroking Lily's hair. Tomorrow, your life will change again. I hope this time it's for the better. But deep in her heart, Hope knew that the next few days would be the most difficult the family had ever faced. Between threatening loan sharks, a son lost in addiction, a sick daughter, and a granddaughter who needed protection, she would have to find strength she didn't even know she possessed. Dawn arrived, laden with anxiety and hope. Hope had spent the night awake, packing a small bag with clothes for herself and Lily, while mentally planning how she would explain to the girl that her mother was alive, but very sick. Grandma, where are we going? Lily asked when she woke up and saw the packed bag at the foot of the bed. Hope sat on the edge of the bed and took her granddaughter's small hands in hers. Lily, dear, I have something very important to tell you. Your mother, she didn't leave forever. She's in a hospital and we're going to visit her today. Lily's eyes widened, a mixture of joy and confusion taking over her expression. My mom is alive? She didn't abandon me? No, my dear, she never abandoned you. She was sick and couldn't take care of you, but she always loved you very much, Hope explained, holding back the tears that threatened to overflow. The drive to Asheville took 2 hours in Hope's old Toyota Corolla. During the trip, Lily alternated between moments of euphoria, imagining the reunion with her mother, and periods of thoughtful silence, processing the information that Claire hadn't simply disappeared. Grandma, why didn't my mum come get me when she got better? Lily asked as they passed through a neighboring town. She tried, dear. She wrote many letters home, but they didn't reach me, Hope answered, avoiding mentioning Michael's role in this family tragedy. The Asheville City Hospital was an old building with long corridors that smelled of disinfectant and walls painted a faded institutional green. Hope held Lily's hand tightly as they looked for the wing where Claire was hospitalized. Marcia, the social worker who had called the night before, was waiting for them at the reception of the pulmonology department. She was a 40-year-old woman with a kind smile that couldn't completely hide the concern in her eyes. Mrs. Hope? I'm Marcia, she said, extending her hand. And this must be Lily. Yes, that's us, Hope replied, noticing how Marcia observed Lily with a mixture of relief and sadness. I need to prepare you before you see Claire, Marcia said, leading them to a private room. She's very weak. She's lost a lot of weight and the lung infection has left her quite debilitated. Also, she carries a lot of guilt for not being able to take care of Lily." "How did she get here?" Hope asked. "She was found unconscious in a boarding house 3 months ago. The owners brought her in when they saw she had a high fever for days. She was constantly saying Lily's name, even during the delirium of the fever." Lily tugged on Hope's skirt. "Grandma, is my mom going to get better?" Marcia crouched down to be at the girl's level. "The doctors are taking very good care of her, Lily, and you know what they said, that seeing you will be the best medicine for her to get better." The room where Claire was hospitalized was at the end of a quiet corridor. Hope stopped in front of the door, taking a deep breath to control her emotion. After 5 years of separation, she would finally reunite with her daughter. When they entered the room, Hope had to hold onto the doorframe to keep from falling. The woman lying in the hospital bed was a frail, aged version of the Claire she remembered. Her brown hair was cut short and dull, her face was too thin, and there was a sickly pallor to her skin. But when Claire opened her eyes and saw Lily, her face lit up with a joy that completely transformed her appearance. "Lily, my little one," Claire whispered in a hoarse voice, trying to sit up in bed. "Mommy!" Lily cried, letting go of Hope's hand and running to the bed. The reunion between mother and daughter was intense and moving. Claire hugged Lily as if she never wanted to let her go again, while the girl covered her mother's face with kisses, checking with her small hands to see if she was real. "I looked for you everywhere," Claire cried. "When I woke up in the hospital and you weren't with me, I thought I had lost you forever. I was on the streets, Mommy, but Grandma found me," Lily explained, pointing to Hope, who remained standing at the door, too emotional to move. It was then that Claire noticed her mother's presence. The silence that settled in the room was filled with 5 years of separation, hurt, regret, and repressed love. "Mom," Claire said finally, her voice breaking on the word. "My daughter," Hope replied, slowly approaching the bed. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for everything." The two women looked at each other for a moment that felt like an eternity, each seeing in the other's face the marks of the suffering the separation had caused. Then Claire extended a trembling hand towards her mother. "Mom, forgive me for disappointing you," Claire said. "No," Hope interrupted, taking her daughter's hand. "I'm the one who needs your forgiveness. I kicked you out when you needed me most. I was a terrible mother." "You were never a terrible mother. You were just hurt," Claire replied. "But I should have insisted more. I should have found a way to—" "You tried," Hope said, remembering the letters found in the attic. "You wrote many letters, didn't you? Trying to come home?" Claire nodded, confused. "I wrote dozens of letters over the years, but you never answered, so I thought you didn't want to see me anymore." "I never received any of your letters," Hope revealed, seeing confusion settle on her daughter's face. "Michael intercepted them. I found out yesterday when Lily found them hidden in the attic." The revelation hit Claire like a punch. "Michael hid my letters for all these years. All of them. Letters where you asked for help, where you talked about Lily, where you tried to reconcile with me. He hid everything." Claire closed her eyes, processing the information. All those years of suffering, thinking her mother had completely rejected her, when in fact her attempts at reconciliation were being sabotaged by her own brother. "Why?" she asked finally. "For greed and addiction," Hope replied bitterly. "He has huge gambling debts and wanted to force me to sell the property to pay them. Our presence got in the way of his plans." For the next few hours, mother and daughter talked about everything that had happened during the 5 years of separation. Claire told of the hardships she faced trying to raise Lily alone, the precarious jobs, the illness that gradually weakened her until she could no longer care for her daughter. "When I passed out at the boarding house, Lily disappeared," Claire said, tears streaming down her face. I thought the owners had taken her to a shelter, but when I got a little better and asked, they said she had vanished during the night. She was very brave, Hope said, stroking the hair of Lily, who had fallen asleep in her mother's lap. She survived alone on the streets until she found me. And how did she find you? Claire asked. Hope told her about the snake incident, about how Lily had saved her life without knowing she was saving her own grandmother. She spoke of the instant connection they felt, of how she had immediately suspected the girl was her granddaughter. It's as if fate conspired to bring us together, Claire murmured, kissing Lily's forehead. But in the midst of the joy of reunion, a shadow of worry hung over Hope. She still hadn't told Claire about the loan shark's threats, about the real danger they were in because of Michael's debts. As if reading her thoughts, Claire asked, "Mum, there's something else, isn't there? I see worry in your eyes." Hope sighed deeply and told her about Michael's creditors, the threats, and how she had been forced to kick her son out of the house. Claire listened in growing silence, her expression becoming more serious with each revelation. "So you're not safe at home," Claire concluded. "No. I have 48 hours to decide whether to sell the property to pay off Michael's debts," Hope said, "and if you don't sell..." Hope didn't need to answer. The two women looked at each other, silently understanding the gravity of the situation. Claire was too sick to leave the hospital, Lily needed protection, and Hope was alone to face dangerous men. "Mom, get Lily out of here. Take her to a safe place," Claire said with determination. "I'll stay here until I get better, and then we'll meet up." "I'm not leaving you again," Hope said firmly. "We've already lost 5 years because of Michael. I'm not losing any more time." At that moment, Lily woke up and, sensing the tension in the air, asked, "What's happening? Are we going to have to separate again?" The two women looked at the child who had suffered so much in her 4 years of life, and both silently made the same decision. They would do anything to protect her and keep the family together this time. The next morning, Hope and Lily returned to Havenwood, with hearts torn between the joy of reuniting with Claire and the anxiety of the looming deadline. Less than 24 hours remained before the loan shark's ultimatum, and Hope had yet to find a solution that didn't involve sacrificing the family property. During the drive back, Lily remained quiet, processing the emotional reunion with her mother. From time to time, she would touch the small drawing Claire had made for her in the hospital, a bird flying free in the sky, symbolizing the hope that they would soon be together again. "Grandma, is my mum really going to get better?" Lily asked as they approached the outskirts of Havenwood. "Yes, dear. The doctor said she's already improving. She just needs time and care," Hope replied, trying to convey a confidence she herself was struggling to maintain. When they arrived home, they found an unpleasant surprise. The front door was ajar, and it was clear someone had been in the house during their absence. Furniture was slightly out of place, drawers were open, as if someone had conducted a quick but systematic search. "Stay close to me, Lily," Hope said, carefully entering the house. On the kitchen table, there was a handwritten note. "Mrs. Hope, we came to get some documents Michael said were here. We didn't find what we were looking for. Remember, until tomorrow at noon." Ah. Hope felt a chill run down her spine. The men had invaded her home, searching for something specific. But what could Michael have promised them would be there? "Grandma, did they touch my things?" Lily asked, running to check the room where she slept. "I don't know, dear. Let's see," Hope replied, following the girl. Lily's room was rummaged through, but carefully, as if the intruders had avoided making too obvious a mess. The girl's clothes were out of place. The toys Hope had bought for her were scattered, and even the drawings she made daily had been examined. "Why did they look at my drawings?" Lily asked, carefully gathering her artistic creations. "I don't know, my dear. Maybe they were looking for something they thought you might have found," Hope replied, a suspicion beginning to form in her mind. It was then that Hope remembered the letters Lily had discovered in the attic. If the men were looking for documents, perhaps there was something else hidden in the house, something Michael knew or suspected existed. Lily, when you were exploring the house in the first few days, did you find anything else besides the letters? Hope asked. The girl thought for a moment, biting her lower lip as she did when she was concentrating. I found some things in the yard, too, under the big tree. What kind of things? A buried box. But it was too heavy for me to get out by myself, Lily explained. It has writing on it, but I can't read it all. Hope's heart raced. In all the chaos of the last few days, she had forgotten that Lily was naturally curious and had had free time to explore every corner of the property. Can you show me where? Hope asked. Lily led her grandmother to the old oak tree in the backyard, a century-old tree that had been planted by Hope's grandfather decades ago. The girl pointed to an area where the earth looked slightly different from the rest of the soil. It's here. I tried to dig with my hands, but it was too hard, Lily explained. Hope went to get a shovel from the factory shed and started digging at the spot indicated by her granddaughter. After a few minutes of work, her tool hit something solid and metallic. With Lily's help, she managed to unearth a small old safe, rusted by the soil's moisture but still well preserved. What's inside, Grandma? Lily asked, her eyes shining with curiosity. Let's find out together, Hope replied, carrying the safe into the house. The safe was locked, but Hope remembered where her late husband used to keep the important keys. In a secret drawer in the office, she found a bunch of old keys, and the third one she tried opened the safe with a satisfying click. Inside, there were documents carefully organized in plastic sleeves to protect them from moisture. The first envelope contained Hope's father's original will, dated 1985. When she read the document, she gasped. "This isn't possible," she murmured, rereading the lines several times to make sure she was understanding correctly. "What does it say, Grandma?" Lily asked, trying to peek over her grandmother's shoulder. According to the will, the family property included not only the house and the factory, but also the rights to exploit a mineral water spring that had been discovered on the edge of the land. Hope's father had kept this information secret, waiting for the right moment to commercially exploit the discovery. The second envelope contained geological reports proving that the spring water had exceptional medicinal properties, with mineral levels that made it extremely valuable to the pharmaceutical and cosmetics industries. The third envelope was what shocked Hope the most. It contained several purchase proposals from multinational corporations, dated from the last 2 years, offering astronomical sums for the property, not for the buildings or the candy factory, but for the rights to exploit the mineral water. The most recent offer was from a German company, $15 million for the entire property. 15 million, Hope whispered, her hands trembling as she held the document. "Is that a lot of money, Grandma?" Lily asked innocently. "It's more money than I ever imagined could exist," Hope replied, still processing the discovery. At the bottom of the safe, there was a handwritten letter from Hope's father, explaining why he had hidden this information. "My dearest Hope, if you are reading this, it means the time has come to reveal the secret I have kept for years. Our property is worth much more than it appears. The spring at the back of the land contains water with rare properties, which companies from all over the world would pay fortunes to exploit. I kept this secret because I feared that greed could destroy our simple, united family. Use this information wisely, always thinking of the well-being of our family's future generations. With love, your father." Hope sat down heavily in a chair, the weight of the revelation almost unbearable. For all these years, she had lived with modest financial difficulties while literally walking on a fortune. And Michael had suspected something. That's why he pushed so hard for the sale of the property. He had probably found clues about the land's true value, but not the complete documents. "Grandma, are you okay? Are you crying?" Lily asked, worried by her grandmother's reaction. "I'm crying with relief, my dear," Hope replied, hugging her granddaughter. "You just saved our family." But even with the discovery of the hidden fortune, Hope knew she still faced serious problems. The loan sharks wouldn't just disappear because she had discovered she was rich. They still posed an immediate threat to her and Lily's safety. Furthermore, there was the issue of Michael. How would he react when he discovered the property was worth 15 times more than he had imagined? His greed and desperation could make him even more dangerous. Hope looked at Lily, who was carefully flipping through the documents as if they were precious treasures, and made a decision. She would not allow greed to destroy her family again. This time, she would use the discovery to protect the people she loved, not to feed self-destructive addictions. But first, she needed to find a way to deal with the immediate threat from Michael's creditors, who had no idea they were trying to blackmail one of the wealthiest women in the region. "Lily, I need to make some important calls," Hope said. "Can you play here nearby while Grandma takes care of some grown-up things?" "Can I help?" Lily offered, always willing to be useful. "You've already helped more than you can imagine, my dear," Hope replied, kissing her granddaughter's forehead. "Now Grandma will take care of the rest." While Lily played with her drawings, Hope called Mr. Shaw, her hands still trembling with emotion and adrenaline. When she told him about the discovery of the safe, the lawyer was silent for so long she thought the call had dropped. "Hope, this changes everything completely," Mr. Shaw said finally, his voice filled with astonishment. "With these documents, you can not only pay off Michael's debts, but also secure Lily's and Claire's futures for several generations." "But how do I deal with these dangerous men?" Hope asked, looking out the window, afraid of seeing the dark car parked in front of her house again. "Leave that to me. I'll contact some colleagues who deal with this type of situation. With the real value of the property as collateral, I can negotiate a deal that protects you," the lawyer replied. While Hope was on the phone, Lily played on the living room floor, organizing her drawings into small piles. She had developed the habit of sorting her creations by themes: birds, flowers, her family, and a new category she had created: drawings of the dream house where she, her mother, and her grandmother would live happily together. It was while organizing these drawings that Lily heard a strange noise coming from the direction of the factory. It was a metallic sound, as if someone were fiddling with the equipment. Curious and always alert due to her experiences on the streets, she approached the window that overlooked the factory shed. To her surprise and alarm, she saw a familiar figure moving furtively among the machines. It was Michael, but he was acting strangely, constantly looking over his shoulder as if he feared being discovered. Lily watched with growing concern as Michael grabbed tools and began to dismantle parts of one of the main candy-making machines. She didn't understand exactly what he was doing, but her instinct told her it was something bad. "Grandma," she called softly, trying not to interrupt the phone conversation, but Hope was too focused on discussing legal strategies with the lawyer. Lily made a brave decision. She slipped out the back door and approached the factory shed, hiding behind some empty barrels from where she could watch Michael without being seen. What she saw deeply disturbed her. Michael wasn't just dismantling the machine, he was purposefully sabotaging the equipment. He poured oil in the wrong places, disconnected important cables, and to Lily's horror, began to create small points of overheating that could cause a fire. "If I can't have the money, at least I'll force the sale out of necessity," Michael muttered to himself as he worked. "An accident at the factory will leave my mother no choice." Lily instinctively understood that Michael was trying to destroy the factory to force Hope to sell the property. But she also knew that a fire could spread to the house, putting her grandmother in danger. With her heart pounding, Lily emerged from her hiding place. "Uncle Michael, what are you doing?" Michael spun around abruptly, knocking over a can of oil that spilled onto the floor. His face was pale and sweaty, and there was a panicked expression in his eyes at being discovered by his niece. "Lily, you shouldn't be here," he said, trying to sound casual but failing miserably. "I'm just making some repairs on the machines." "It doesn't look like repairs," Lily said, with the brutal honesty of children. "It looks like you're breaking things." Michael realized he couldn't fool the girl. His expression changed, becoming harder and more desperate. "Lily, you don't understand grown-up things. Sometimes we have to do difficult things." "Like hurting Grandma?" Lily asked, taking a step back as she sensed something dangerous in her uncle's change in behavior. "I'm not hurting anyone. I'm trying to save our family." Michael exploded, his voice echoing through the empty shed. "Liar," Lily said simply. "I heard you on the phone. You want me to disappear." The accusation hit Michael like a gunshot. He had no idea the girl knew about his conversations with the loan sharks. "You heard what?" "I heard you say I needed to disappear so Grandma would be sad and sell the house," Lily said, backing away a few more steps toward the door. Michael understood that he was cornered. If Lily told Hope what she had seen and heard, his plans would be completely ruined. A desperate idea began to form in his mind. "Lily, come here. We need to talk," he said, trying to sound gentle but failing to completely hide the threat in his voice. "No," Lily replied firmly, her experience on the streets having taught her to recognize when an adult had dangerous intentions. "I'm going to tell Grandma." "You're not going to tell anyone anything," Michael said, advancing toward the girl. Lily ran. Her small feet flew across the factory floor as Michael chased her, stumbling over the equipment and the oil he himself had spilled. The girl was agile and knew the property's nooks and crannies well, an advantage she used to escape her desperate uncle. She reached the house shouting, "Grandma, Grandma, Uncle Michael is breaking the machines." Hope, who had just finished her call with the lawyer, ran to meet her granddaughter. "What happened, dear?" Between sobs, Lily told her everything she had seen and heard. She talked about Michael sabotaging the equipment, about his plans to cause a fire, about the threats he had made when he was discovered. "He said I can't tell anyone," Lily finished, clinging to her grandmother's skirt. The fury that engulfed Hope was unlike anything she had ever felt. It wasn't just anger over the financial betrayal or the hidden letters. It was a fierce maternal outrage at seeing that her son had threatened her granddaughter. "Lily, go to your room and lock the door," Hope ordered with a dangerous calm. "Don't come out until I call you." "Grandma, are you going to fight with him?" Lily asked, worried. "I'm going to handle this," Hope replied, picking up the phone to call the local police. But before she could dial, Michael appeared at the kitchen door. His hair was disheveled, his clothes were dirty with oil, and there was a wild expression in his eyes that Hope had never seen before. "Mom, the girl is lying," he said, trying to sound convincing. "She didn't understand what she saw." "Michael, it's over," Hope said, standing between him and the staircase where Lily had gone up. "I know everything, the hidden letters, the stolen money, your threats against Lily, and now this." "Mum, I was trying to protect our family. These men won't wait forever," Michael tried to argue. "Protect? You were sabotaging our source of income and threatening a 4-year-old child," Hope retorted, her voice rising an octave. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under. They're going to hurt us if I don't get the money," Michael shouted back. "Then you should have thought of that before you bet. $400,000 you didn't have," Hope replied, picking up the phone again. Michael saw his mother dialing and realized his last chances were running out. In a moment of absolute desperation, he approached and tried to grab the phone from her hand. "Mom, don't call the police, please. I'm your son," he pleaded. "That's exactly why I'm doing this," Hope said, pulling away from him. "Because you are my son, and I won't let you turn into a monster." The call was answered, and Hope quickly reported the situation to the sheriff, a man who had known the family for years and was shocked to hear about Michael's actions. While they waited for the authorities to arrive, mother and son stood in tense silence. Michael sat at the kitchen table with his head in his hands. Hope leaned against the wall, guarding the access to the stairs. "Mom," Michael said finally, his voice broken. "I'm sorry. I ruined everything." "Yes, you did," Hope agreed. "But there's still time for you to get help and try to fix at least part of what you've done." "Those men won't give me time for anything," Michael murmured. "Maybe they will," Hope said mysteriously. "Maybe things aren't as impossible as you imagine." It was then that the sound of cars arriving at the property echoed through the afternoon air. But it wasn't just the police car. It was several vehicles, including one Hope recognized as belonging to the loan sharks who had threatened her family. The confrontation that unfolded in the yard of the Yellow House was unlike anything Hope had imagined. On one side, 2 local police cars arrived, with Sheriff Ferreira and 3 more officers. On the other, the loan shark's dark car positioned itself strategically, blocking the main exit of the property. Roger got out of the vehicle accompanied by his 2 cronies, clearly surprised and annoyed by the police presence. His eyes immediately fixed on Michael, who watched the scene from the kitchen window with an expression of absolute terror. "Sheriff Ferreira," Hope said, stepping out to greet him, "thank you for coming so quickly." "Mrs. Hope, I received your call about vandalism on the property, but I see we have another situation developing here," the sheriff replied, observing the men who remained standing near the dark car. Roger, realizing the situation was getting out of his control, decided to take the initiative. "Sheriff, there's no problem here. We just came to collect a legitimate debt from Mr. Michael." "A debt you're collecting with threats and trespassing?" asked the sheriff, who had been briefed by Mr. Shaw about the nature of Michael's creditors. "We don't make threats, we just do business," Roger replied with a fake smile. It was at this moment that Hope made a decision that would change everything. She had spent the last few days being threatened, watching her family suffer and discovering betrayals that shook her deepest convictions. But now, with the documents from the safe giving her an unexpected position of strength, she no longer had to be the victim. "Gentlemen," she said, addressing both the police and the loan sharks, "before we resolve any issue about debts, I think everyone should know exactly who they are dealing with." Hope went into the house and returned, carrying the documents she had found in the safe. Mr. Shaw had arrived during the commotion and stood by her side, providing legal support. "Michael owes you $400,000, Hope said, looking directly at Roger. "It's a considerable sum for our family, and I understand you want your money back." "Exactly, and the deadline has passed," Roger replied, thinking Hope was preparing to capitulate. "But there's a problem with your collection strategy," Hope continued, opening the first envelope of documents. "You are trying to blackmail the owner of one of the most valuable properties in the state." Roger frowned, not understanding where Hope was going with this. "Ma'am, we already know about your candy factory. It's not worth much more than $2 million. "The candy factory is worth almost nothing," Hope agreed, startling everyone present, including the sheriff. "But the medicinal mineral water spring at the back of the property is worth $15 million. The silence that followed was total. Even the sound of the wind in the trees seemed to have stopped as everyone processed the information. Mr. Shaw opened his briefcase and took out copies of the geological reports and purchase proposals he had prepared the day before. These documents prove that the Miller property possesses one of the purest and most medicinal mineral water springs ever discovered in the region. 3 multinational companies have made formal purchase offers, the largest being for $15 million. Michael, who had approached the window to listen to the conversation, felt his legs give way. 15 million. All that agony, all that pressure, all the betrayals he had committed, and his family was rich beyond his wildest dreams. "This means," Mr. Shaw continued, that Mrs. Hope has more than enough assets to pay off her son's debts should she choose to do so. Roger and his cronies exchanged glances, realizing they had made a grave mistake in threatening someone with such financial capacity. Wealthy people had resources to protect themselves in ways they hadn't anticipated. "Ma'am," Roger said, completely changing his tone, "if you are able to pay off the debt, we can make a civilized agreement." "Oh, but I didn't say I was going to pay off the debt," Hope replied, surprising everyone again. "I just said I have the capacity to do so." "What do you mean?" Michael asked, finally stepping out of the house to join the group. Hope looked at her son with a mixture of sadness and determination. "Michael, you betrayed my trust in every possible way. You forged my signature, stole money from the company, hid letters from your sister, threatened your niece, and now you tried to sabotage our property. Why should I use my money to solve problems that you created?" "Because I'm your son," Michael said desperately. "That's exactly why I'm not going to," Hope retorted. "Because you are my son, and paying your debts without consequences will only further fuel your addiction." Roger was growing impatient with the family dynamics. "Ma'am, with all due respect, this doesn't solve our problem. Michael still owes us, regardless of family issues." "Of course it does," Mr. Shaw said, joining the conversation. "Mrs. Hope is willing to make a proposal." "What proposal?" asked one of Roger's cronies. "My client offers $200,000 to completely settle Michael's debts, provided you sign a full release and commit to never contacting our family again," the lawyer explained. "200,000? He owes 400, Roger protested. 200,000 is half of what you lent, considering the actual amount lent was probably much smaller and the rest is usurious interest," Mr. Shaw said coldly. "It's a generous offer, considering you are practicing loan sharking, which is a crime." Sheriff Ferreira spoke up for the first time since the negotiation had begun. "Gentlemen, I suggest you accept the proposal. The alternative could be much less pleasant." Roger realized he was at a disadvantage. He had a wealthy property owner offering half the money up front, an experienced lawyer negotiating, and the police present as witnesses. Besides, a 50% immediate return was better than 0% if they tried to force a collection that could result in legal trouble. 300,000, Roger tried to negotiate. 250,000, and that's my final offer, Hope said. Take it, or deal with the legal consequences of your practices. After a few minutes of consultation among themselves, the loan sharks accepted the deal. Mr. Shaw had brought a pre-prepared release form, and the transaction was finalized right there, with the police serving as witnesses. Hope transferred the money through her mobile banking app, using the new access code she had created to protect her accounts. In less than an hour, $250,000 had changed hands, and the loan sharks left with a legal document that prohibited them from any future contact with the Miller family. When they were finally alone, Hope, Michael, Mr. Shaw, and the sheriff, Michael turned to his mother with tears in his eyes. "Mom, thank you. I didn't deserve it." "You're right," Hope interrupted. "You didn't deserve it, and I didn't do it for you." "What do you mean?" "I did it for Lily and for Claire. They don't deserve to live in fear because of your problems," Hope explained. "And I did it for myself too, because I want peace in my family." "But now everything can go back to normal," Michael said hopefully. "No," Hope replied firmly. "Nothing goes back to normal until you get serious treatment for your addiction and prove that you have truly changed." Mr. Shaw approached Michael. "Young man, your mother has asked me to arrange a spot for you in a rehabilitation clinic in Charlotte. It's a condition for you to remain part of this family." "And if I refuse?" Michael asked, though his voice showed he already knew the answer. "Then you will be completely disinherited, and you will no longer have any right to any part of the family assets," Hope said without hesitation. The ultimatum was clear and final. Michael understood that he had hit rock bottom, and his only chance at redemption was to accept the help being offered. "How long is the treatment?" he asked. "As long as it takes," Mr. Shaw replied. "A minimum of 6 months, but it could be longer if the doctors deem it necessary." Michael looked at the house where he had grown up, at the mother who had always protected him, and finally understood that his actions had consequences that went beyond his own personal struggles. "All right," he said finally. "I'll accept the treatment." From the upper floor of the house, Lily watched all the activity through her bedroom window. She didn't fully understand what was happening, but she could feel that the tension that had dominated the house for the past few days was finally dissipating. A week after Michael's departure for the rehabilitation clinic in Charlotte, life in the Yellow House had found a new routine. Hope woke up every morning to the soft sound of Lily playing in the yard, and for the first time in months there was no tension or fear hanging over the property. The DNA test results had arrived 3 days earlier, officially confirming what everyone already knew in their hearts. Lily was indeed Hope's granddaughter, Claire's daughter. The legal document gave Hope the peace of mind to know she could make definitive decisions about the girl's future without legal challenges. "Grandma, can I go visit my mum today?" Lily asked during breakfast, as she did every morning since she found out Claire was alive. "Of course, my dear. In fact, I have a surprise for you," Hope said, watching the girl's eyes sparkle with curiosity. "What surprise?" "Your mother was discharged from the hospital yesterday. She's coming home today," Hope announced, smiling as she saw joy explode on Lily's face. The girl jumped from her chair and ran to hug her grandmother so tightly she almost knocked the coffee cup from the woman's hands. "My mom is going to live here with us." "Yes, she is, forever if she wants to," Hope replied, moved by Lily's pure happiness. During the week, Claire had remained in the hospital. Hope had visited her every day, and the two had talked extensively about the past, the present, and especially the future. Claire was physically better, but still emotionally fragile due to years of suffering and separation. "Mom, I still feel like I don't deserve all this generosity after the mistakes I made," Claire had said during one of these visits. "Dear, the only mistakes I see are mine. I should have supported you when you found out you were pregnant instead of kicking you out of the house," Hope had replied. "Now we have a second chance to be a real family." While waiting for Claire's arrival, Hope decided it was time to put into practice the plan she had been developing with Mr. Shaw. She called the lawyer and asked him to come to the house with the documents they had discussed. "Lily, I need to take care of some grown-up business with Mr. Shaw. Can you play in the yard while we talk?" Hope asked. "Can I pick flowers for my mom?" Lily asked, always thoughtful about pleasing the people she loved. "Yes, you can, dear. Make a beautiful bouquet for her." When Mr. Shaw arrived, he found Hope in the living room, surrounded by documents spread over the coffee table. She had spent the previous night organizing papers, photographs, and memories she wanted to preserve for future generations. "Hope, I brought all the documents you requested," the lawyer said, opening his briefcase. "But I have to ask, are you absolutely sure about these decisions? They are very significant changes." "I've never been more certain of anything in my life," Hope replied with conviction. "After everything that's happened, I've come to understand that true family isn't necessarily bound by blood, but united by love and loyalty." The first document they signed was the complete alteration of Hope's will. The entire property, including the house, the factory, and the rights to the mineral water spring, would be divided equally between Claire and Lily. Michael would receive only a sum of money sufficient to start a new life, provided he could stay clean from his addiction for at least 2 consecutive years. "Does this mean if Michael relapses, he loses his right to any inheritance?" Mr. Shaw asked. making sure he understood the terms. Exactly, Hope confirmed. I want him to have an incentive to stay sober, but I also want to protect Claire and Lily from future attempts at manipulation or blackmail. The second document established a trust fund for Lily's education, ensuring she would have the resources to study wherever she wanted, up to the university level, regardless of any future family circumstances. The girl is very smart, Hope commented as she signed the document. She deserves all the opportunities we couldn't give Claire when she was young. The third document was the one that moved Hope the most, the official guardianship papers for Lily. With Claire's signature, who had enthusiastically agreed, Hope would become a co-legal guardian of the girl, ensuring she would always have a voice in important decisions about her future. This means that even when I leave this world, Lily will have guaranteed legal and financial protection, Hope explained, and Claire will have the support she needs to raise her without financial pressures. When they finished signing all the documents, Mr. Shaw carefully placed the papers back in his briefcase. Hope, I can say that in 40 years of practicing law, I have rarely seen someone use wealth so wisely. Money doesn't buy happiness, Arthur, but it can provide security and opportunities. And after almost losing my family because of Michael's greed, I've learned that true wealth lies in the relationships we build, Hope replied. It was at that moment they heard the sound of a car arriving. Hope looked out the window and saw Claire getting out of a taxi, carrying a small suitcase with her few belongings. Her daughter was still thin and pale, but there was a new light in her eyes, the light of hope for rebuilding her life alongside her daughter and mother. "She's here!" Lily shouted, dropping the flowers she was picking and running towards the gate. The reunion between mother and daughter was even more emotional than the first meeting at the hospital. This time, there was no rush, no nurses interrupting, no medication limiting their time together. Claire could hug Lily for as long as she wanted, kiss her small face, feel the real weight of her daughter in her arms. "My little one, you've grown so much," Claire said, stroking Lily's hair, which was now clean and well cared for thanks to Hope's efforts. "Mommy, Grandma bought me new clothes, and she taught me how to make cookies. And there's a bird that comes to my bedroom window every morning," Lily chattered excitedly, wanting to share everything she had experienced during their separation. Hope watched the scene from a distance, allowing mother and daughter to have their special moment. When she finally approached, Claire stood up and hugged her tightly. "Mom, thank you for taking care of her. Thank you for forgiving me. Thank you for giving us a new chance," Claire said, tears of gratitude streaming down her face. "No need to thank me, dear. We're family," Hope replied simply. That afternoon, the 3 generations of Miller women gathered in the kitchen to prepare dinner together. Lily helped by peeling potatoes, Claire prepared the salad, and Hope cooked the fried chicken that was a family specialty. "Mom, I need to tell you something," Claire said as she chopped tomatoes. "During all those years away from home, even in the worst moments, I never stopped dreaming of this day. I dreamed that one day the 3 of us would be together in the kitchen, cooking and talking like a normal family. And now we are," Hope said, smiling, "and we will be many more times." "Forever?" asked Lily, who despite her young age had learned to fear that the people she loved would disappear from her life. "Forever," Claire and Hope promised in unison. During dinner, Hope told Claire about the changes to the will and the education fund created for Lily. She also explained about Michael's treatment and the conditions set for his eventual return to the family. "Mom, you didn't have to include Michael in anything after all he did," Claire said. "Yes, I did, dear. He is my son, even though he made terrible mistakes. But now he needs to prove that he has truly changed," Hope explained. "And most importantly, he needs to prove that he no longer poses a threat to you two." That night, after Lily fell asleep in her room, the same room she had slept in since she arrived, but now decorated with drawings she and her mother had made together, Hope and Claire sat on the porch to talk. "Mum, I feel like the last 5 years were just a bad nightmare," Claire said, watching the stars in the clear Havenwood sky. "They weren't just a nightmare, dear. They were years of learning, of growth, of preparation for this moment," Hope replied. "You became a strong, brave mother. Lily became a resilient and loving girl, and I learned that pride can be a family's worst enemy. And now we start over, together, with the wisdom that suffering has brought us, but also with the joy of having a second chance," Hope said, taking her daughter's hand. For the first time in 5 years, Claire fell asleep in her old home, knowing that when she woke up, her daughter would be running through the yard, her mother would be making coffee in the kitchen, and she would finally be where she always belonged, at home, with her family. 6 months had passed since Claire had returned home, and the Miller property had been completely transformed. What was once just a small homemade candy factory now served as the headquarters of a thriving family business, while the controlled exploitation of the mineral water spring began to generate an income that surpassed Hope's most optimistic dreams. Lily, now 5 years old, had blossomed in a way that surprised everyone who knew her. The thin, frightened girl who had saved Hope from the snake was now a vibrant, curious, and life-filled child. Her bird drawings continued, but now they flew free and colorful, reflecting the joy of a childhood that was finally safe and loved. "Grandma, can I help pack the candies today?" Lily asked one Saturday morning, wearing the small apron Hope had specially made for her. "Of course, my dear. But first, you need to have breakfast," Hope replied, watching tenderly as her granddaughter adapted to the family factory routine. The candy factory had expanded significantly. With part of the resources from the spring, Hope had invested in modern equipment and hired several local employees. Claire had taken over the company's administration, demonstrating a natural talent for business that no one knew she possessed. "Mum, I received an interesting proposal yesterday," Claire said, entering the kitchen with a folder of documents. "A supermarket chain from Atlanta wants an exclusive contract for our mineral water candies." "Is it a good proposal?" Hope asked, pouring coffee for her daughter. "Very good. Enough to triple our production and create jobs for at least 20 people from town," Claire replied, with a spark of enthusiasm in her eyes that hadn't been seen for a long time. Lily listened to the conversation while eating her homemade cookies, naturally absorbing the discussions about family business. It was impressive how such a small child intuitively understood the importance of work and responsibility. "And Uncle Michael?" Lily asked suddenly, making the two women look at each other. "What about him, dear?" Hope asked. "Is he coming home when he gets better?" the girl insisted, demonstrating a capacity for forgiveness that deeply touched the adults' hearts. Hope sighed before answering. Michael had sent a few letters from the rehabilitation clinic showing real progress in his treatment. For the first time in years, his words sounded sincere, without the manipulation and desperation that had characterized his previous communication. "Maybe, my dear, but only if he proves he has truly changed," Hope answered honestly. "I think he will change," Lily said, with the innocent conviction of children. "People can get better when other people help them, right?" The simple but profound observation touched both Hope and Claire. It was true that they had all healed through mutual love and support. Perhaps Michael could find his redemption too. That afternoon, while Lily played in the yard under Claire's watchful eye, Hope received an unexpected visit. Mr. Shaw arrived with a serious expression, carrying documents she didn't recognize. "Hope, I need to talk to you about something important," the lawyer said, sitting in the living room. "What happened, Arthur? Are there problems with the mineral water contracts?" Hope asked, immediately concerned. "No, it's not about that. It's about Michael," he replied, opening his folder. I received a call from the rehabilitation clinic. He wants to talk to you in person. Talk to me. About what? Apparently, during his treatment, he revealed information about other irregularities he committed. Things you haven't discovered yet, Mr. Shaw explained. And he wants to confess everything directly to you. Hope felt a knot in her stomach. What kind of irregularities? I don't know, exactly. But the doctors at the clinic think it's part of his healing process to take full responsibility for his actions. Do you think I should go? Hope asked. I think so. But take Claire with you. The two of you can face whatever he has to reveal, the lawyer advised. 2 days later, Hope and Claire traveled to Charlotte, leaving Lily in the care of Mrs. Carmen, the trusted neighbor who had become almost a second grandmother to the girl. The rehabilitation clinic was a quiet place, surrounded by well-kept gardens and an atmosphere of therapeutic serenity. Michael was waiting for them in a visitor's room, and the transformation in his appearance was remarkable. He had gained a healthy weight, his eyes were clearer, and for the first time in years, he seemed genuinely at peace with himself. "Mom, Claire," he said, standing up to greet them. "Thank you for coming." "How are you, Michael?" Hope asked, observing her son attentively. "Better, much better," he replied sincerely. "The treatment has been difficult but necessary. I'm learning to deal with issues I've avoided my whole life." "Mr. Shaw said you have something important to tell us," Claire said directly. Michael took a deep breath before he began. "Yes. During therapy, I realized I need to take full responsibility for everything I've done, and there are things you still don't know." Over the next 2 hours, Michael revealed additional wrongdoings he had committed over the years. He had taken out loans in the company's name without authorization, sold old factory equipment, and pocketed the money. And most painfully, he had intercepted not only Claire's letters, but also some phone call attempts she had made over the years. "Claire tried to call home at least 10 times in the last 5 years, Michael confessed, tears of shame streaming down his face. "I always answered and said you weren't there, or that you didn't want to talk to her." The revelation hit Claire like a punch to the gut. "You stopped me from talking to my mother when I needed help the most." "Yes," Michael said simply. "And I hate myself for it every day." Hope remained silent for several minutes, processing the full extent of her son's betrayals. It was even worse than she had imagined. Michael had not only harmed the family financially, but had actively sabotaged family relationships for years. "Why are you telling me this now?" she asked finally. "Because I've learned that true recovery is only possible when we take full responsibility for our actions. And because I want you to make decisions about my future based on the complete truth, not on edited versions of the facts," Michael replied. "And what do you expect to happen now?" Claire asked, her voice filled with renewed hurt. "I don't expect anything," Michael said. "If you decide you don't want to see me anymore, I'll accept it. If you decide to give me a chance to prove I've changed, I will work for the rest of my life to deserve that trust." Hope looked at the son who had caused so much suffering to the family, but who now seemed genuinely sorry and transformed. It was an impossible situation. How to balance justice with mercy, how to protect the family from future betrayals without completely abandoning a son who was apparently healing. "Michael," she said finally, "when you are discharged from the clinic, you can come back to Havenwood, but not to our house." "I understand," he said, though it was clearly difficult to hear. "I'll rent a small apartment for you in town. You can work at the factory, but as a regular employee, not a partner. And any decision about inheritance or profit sharing will only be made after you prove for at least 2 years that you've stayed clean and no longer pose a threat to our family," Hope continued. "Those are fair conditions," Michael agreed. "And there's one final condition," Claire added. "You will spend every weekend doing volunteer work in town, helping other families suffering from addiction, so you understand the real impact of what you caused." "I accept all conditions," Michael said without hesitation. When they left the clinic, Mother and daughter walked in silence to the car. It was a lot to process, the confirmation that Michael had been even more harmful than they had imagined, but also the real possibility that he was truly changing. "Mum, do you think you did the right thing?" Claire asked as they drove back to Havenwood. "I don't know," Hope answered honestly. "But I know that Lily taught us that people can change when they receive love and clear boundaries. Michael needs to have the chance to prove he can be different. And if he goes back to his addictions, then he will have made his choice, and we will make ours," Hope said with determination. When they arrived home at dusk, they found Lily waiting on the porch, running to hug them as soon as they got out of the car. "Grandma, Mommy, I missed you. Mrs. Carmen helped me make a chocolate cake for you," the girl exclaimed, her pure joy immediately dissolving any tension left from the difficult visit. That night, as the 3 generations of Miller women enjoyed the cake made by Lily, Hope looked around the table and felt a deep sense of gratitude. There was a 4-year-old girl who had saved her life by facing a snake, revealing herself as the granddaughter she didn't know she had. There was a daughter who had returned from exile and illness to rebuild her life. And there was herself, a 72-year-old woman who had discovered it's never too late to right the wrongs of the past. "Grandma," Lily said, interrupting her thoughts, "can I make a drawing of our family to put on the new fridge?" "Of course, dear. What will the drawing be like?" Hope asked. "It will have me, you, Mommy, and—" Lily hesitated for a moment. "And Uncle Michael, too. But he'll be a little far away until he learns to be good again." The child's simplicity and wisdom deeply touched the 2 women. Lily had intuitively understood the complex family situation and found a way to include everyone without compromising the security she had gained. "It's a perfect drawing," Claire said, kissing her daughter's forehead. "It really is," Hope agreed. "Our family is exactly where it needs to be." And for the first time in 5 years, when Hope went to sleep that night, she knew with absolute certainty that her family was complete, protected, and ready to face any challenge the future might bring. The brave little girl who had saved an elderly woman from a snake had, in fact, saved much more than that. She had saved an entire family from destruction and shown that true love can heal even the deepest wounds. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel. I promise to bring you videos every day that will make your life happier. Comment on what you thought of my story, giving it a score from 0 to 10. And thank you very much.